All right, Dave,
Hey,
we are live, and you should be seeing this on my Facebook page now.
let's refresh it.
Yeah, it takes a minute,
Okay.
and then you can share it.
Yep, there we are. Yep.
Fantastic. So I like it when everything works. It it always makes me feel good when we start off and everything is working all right. So the thing that I just listened to and we started off with was Edmar Castaneda. Castaneda?
Yep, Castaneda.
Castaneda. Um, and that's something that you're doing recently. That's one of the most recent projects you're working on.
Yeah.
Is that mostly set drumming, or are you doing a lot of percussion with that too?
No, that's definitely a lot of drums with percussion, and that was one of the projects where I really got to expand on that or use it a lot. Because I'm using a traditional drum set. I'm sitting on a cajon. The flamenco drum, the box drum.
Mm-hmm.
I usually have a Middle Eastern doumbek off the hi hat, and a lot of percussion.
So hang on. I'm gonna pick your brain on some of these things. A doumbek. What is that? How does it? Is it like a djembe? What I don't.
It's the doumbek. You could think of it's like the belly dancing drum.
Oh,
I think I
okay.
have one. So it's in a bag. It's already put away.
All right.
Should have pulled one out. Yeah.
So, well, before we went live, I was asking you. It looks like you have a drum store behind you. How many different cowbells and things do you have?
Oh,
And
God.
tambourines and oh
Yeah.
my God.
Yeah. It's a whole collection of tambourines. They all, some I bought, some people have given me. Um, they have different every different sounds. You just hear something different, and so I would collect it. Um, and from traveling around the world and stuff, and just if I see something, I'll pick it up.
So, what I wanted to get at before you moved to New York, we knew each other way back in the early 80s. We worked on a cruise ship together.
Yep.
You're originally from the Bay Area.
Yep.
And I went to see you play, and I think you were playing with a Little Night Music
Yep. That's correct.
at the Monterey Whaling Company. Is that when you started doing some of the really different kind of things? When did you start doing the whole percussion along with set playing?
Um, e- Around that time, or maybe a couple years before, because initially I would just put because I played congas, and so I just started bringing a conga and put it off on the hi hat side, my left side, and then kind of jerry rigged a foot cowbell, so I could play a cowbell with my foot and stuff, and just started doing it way back then.
Well, I remember coming to watch you play, and it tripped me out because I have trouble just playing the drums just regular. But I would watch you, and you put down a stick and then start playing a conga beat with your left hand. I'm like, what the hell? How do you do that?
Yeah.
So um, you've taken that even further, and I don't think many people were doing that back then. I think that's recently it's become more prevalent, but
Yeah.
were you kind of into world music at the time? Was the inspiration or what?
Yeah. Yeah. I grew up. My mother was a classical pianist and organist, and she also loved jazz and Brazilian music.
Mm.
So we would have that kind of music playing, and then we would also um, go and see music live, and so percussion was always kind of in my ears and stuff. And then in high school, was very fortunate to have a lot of different music programs. And of course, there's always 10 drummers. So like in the jazz band, I started playing congas and playing percussion. And then bringing even some of that percussion into the marching band. I remember we had a set of little bongo conga tri drums for the marching band, and I brought in a set of the Brazilian agogo bells, the two pitches, and kind of we made like a samba drum cadence, and I started playing the bells, and I remember the music director coming back like, what is that, and loving it.
You know, at that time, I don't think any of the marching bands were doing any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think it was kind of in the beginning because I think
Mhm.
definitely the drum corps, heavy duty like the Blue Devils and stuff. I think they
Mhm.
would have some of those instruments,
Yeah.
um, but um, but yeah, I always had a love for that music, for Brazilian music and world music. And then when I started playing out live, I would miss somebody playing congas and stuff, and it's like, well, let me see if I can just kind of do this.
So that morphed into you playing on one of the clips you sent me on YouTube, and I would like to try to show it, but what will happen is it'll be choppy when you will be able to hear the audio, but visually you won't necessarily be able to see because it's sort of choppy.
Uh-huh.
But I'll try to play one of the things. But
All
I
right.
want to ask you, um, on this one particular clip that I'm watching on YouTube, you actually are. It sounds like a set of drums,
Hmm.
but there's no drums. It's
Right.
a hone and it's a tambourine and it's a bunch of bells and triangles and chimes and uh, would that be sort of a world drumming kind of setup? It,
Yeah. Yeah.
how did you get to that? I mean, give me your how you developed from just being a set drummer, which I want to get into because of the Chicago connection. Uh,
Right.
but how did you lead from transitioning from a set to a set of just percussion and you're playing it like a set of drums?
Right. Um, Probably goes back to I was fortunate I played with Al Di Meola. I played drum set with Al Di Meola for about a year, and half the band was from Argentina. So when we weren't touring, we would play gigs around New York, and the guitarist, we played a lot of flamenco music, and he was saying I should get a cajon. Again, that's the wooden box you're sitting on, the flamenco box.
Mhm.
And at first, I kind of boxed. It's like, what do I need a box for? So I bought an inexpensive one, started playing it. We probably played like 3, 4 nights a week, and kind of got into it. And then got a better one as I really saw the potential of using it. And then was really fortunate. We used to play this little Italian restaurant in the village. It was around the corner from the Blue Note, and whatever we wanted to play, we could play. And the owner was just like when you walked into his restaurant, it was just like you entered this other world. The vibe was like so incredible. And his name was Agnello, and he would just say, do whatever you want. He would say, you got to be, whatever you want to be, you be. And he'd say, David, the end of the night, he'd say, David, tonight you sound horrible, okay? But come back, okay? You try. All right?
what what
He said, the other guy, they play the same thing every night. Pity, 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 pity. He said, but you try different. Oh, I don't like. But I see you're gonna get better. You know. you know. And so I just started developing this thing, and then we would play small places where you couldn't have a drum set.
Hmm.
So one of the things I used to play, I would play a shaker with one hand, with a right hand, and have a stick in there, so I could hit things. But then when I would put the shaker down, maybe to play cajon with two hands, I would miss that sound, the shaker. Just kind of that momentum would go. So it's like, hey,
Mm.
how can I play the shaker somewhere other? So I got like a couple eggs and then a canister of shaker that they sounded well together, and I put it in my left sock
What?
because because you're used to playing drum set, the hi hat.
Yeah.
So I would find that even if you just played quarter notes, that was that sound, and then as I just kind of would tap eighth notes because it was going up and down, you would get 16th notes. So you
Oh,
know,
so I'm thinking if I'm a sound guy, I'll come up and go like, "Oh, do I need to mic your sock?"
yeah, right.
you
We
know,
did we did a live TV show on like the Latin news station one time with the guitars, just the two of us, and because they're in the sock, you can't see them. And we did the track. I was playing just Cajon mostly, and we finished the track. And the sound man, they went to commercial, and he ran out of the room, and he's like, "Where is this?" And he saw a shaker, and he picked. He said, "I heard this shaker. Where is it?" You know. And then I kind of shook my leg, and he was like, "Oh," you know.
That's
Just
funny.
add, it just adds so much. Like, you don't. And then sometimes, if I didn't have the bass drum, I would put ankle bells around that, and just add. You can add a 2 and 4 to that, or quarter notes, or even if you kind of shake your leg, you get a roll. So
Oh man.
and it was from just playing these little restaurants, and trying stuff, and again, doesn't work. It's like, but keep going, keep going.
There's a Pixar cartoon called One Man Band or something where this guy comes out and he's got cymbals between his knees and he's playing a drum, and I'm envisioning you doing that.
Yeah, because there's stuff when I do have it with the drum set. I don't know if there's you can see these kind of bells back here. I usually have a set of those hanging underneath the snare drum. So if I'm playing Cajon, I can just reach over and play those.
So do you mostly now, when you're playing Cajon, do you use the pedal for the Cajon, or do you actually reach down with your hand?
If I can, I'll use the pedal, just because it frees up a hand.
And do you have one of the backwards where you use your heel, or do you use your toe?
Toe. It's a regular pedal with like the bike cable system.
Oh, okay.
And there's a very, very, very slight delay. They've gotten a lot better as far as the action, and it's amazing because it frees up your hand, and then if I need to, then I can go play with two hands.
Okay. So I'm going to try to see. I know we'll be able to hear it, but I'm going to try to bring up this clip. So give me a second while I do this, so people can at least see what it is that you are talking about. And on this clip is Ofer. Is that how you say it?
Offer. Yeah.
Offer Asaf.
Yeah. He's
okay. Is that a good one to show all of the?
Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah.
Okay, so give me a second here, and I'll get it up and show it, because to me this is fascinating how you use this to play. You're playing it like a set.
Yeah.
And it sounds like a set, but it's nothing but percussion instruments.
Right.
Okay, so I almost have it ready to go. And of course, there we go. I'll share this. Okay, there we go. All right, I want to take it out. And Dave, there's so much I want to ask you about that. Okay, so it sounds like you're playing some kind of floor tom, and I believe it's a tambourine.
Yep, it's actually LP. I'm endorsed by LP. It's a great company. It's called the Stanton Moore tambourine, and what it's I think it's 12 inches or, but Stanton Moore was like a New Orleans drummer, and so he used to take a tambourine and put it on the drums or play it, and so working with LP, they developed this tambourine. The jingles are dry like a Brazilian jingles, so they're not real noisy, and then it also has a mount on it, and you tune that thing low, or I usually sometimes I have two. I'll tune one up high as a high tom, and the other one's a floor tom.
So, well, the tambourines are tunable.
Yeah, I think I can.
Because most of the tambourines that people know about are not tunable, and they're like what you have behind your head there.
Right. Well, again, this is with a plastic head. If you can see it, yeah.
Let me solo that up. So, okay, show it up again. Yeah. Okay.
And it's got the, it's pretty much a Brazilian pandero. And again, I think it's 12 or 13 inches, and then it's got the mount here.
Okay.
And then you can tune it,
Oh.
And I love it for that. Yeah, just you do it low. And even actually, I did a video for LP where they had built a drum set out of percussion, and they just said, okay, we need a video. Who can we get? And it's like, the guy said, call Dave Silliman. So, and what they did with this in the video, this was the kick drum.
Oh, really? With the bells, with the.
Yeah. So basically, they took the cowbell foot mount, mounted this on it, and put it here. Put the mic right inside there, kind of like the way you used to mic drums when they were all single-headed. You would put the mic right in there,
right?
And that thing sounds like a cannon as a bass drum.
Wow!
And the jingles, because again they're Brazilian, they're dry. They're not overbearing.
And my guess is if you mic it right, you actually wouldn't even hear the jingles. You'd almost need to mic the jingles themselves.
Yeah. Good. Yeah.
And you would maybe want to use two different mics on it as a kick. I don't know. I'm just thinking how I would mic all your stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Now, in that video, you had like 3 triangles.
Yep.
You had chimes, and what was that coil thing?
The coil is this is kind of my doctor's bag whenever I do a gig.
Doc Silliman.
Yeah. I don't know if it's not in here. I'm not sure where it is. But it's basically, there it is. I think my wife took it out.
Oh, okay. Now
it looks like a spring. It's an actual instrument. I've only heard of like 2 or 3 other percussionists. Mino Sanelo has one, and Manolo Badrena, and it's a great instrument. Just I'll just kind of throw some string on there.
It's an actual instrument that you can buy.
They don't sell them anymore.
Oh.
But it has that it's just a strange little sound, and then it's a visual when you kind of hit it, it can spins around. And I've done recordings where I've used this as hand claps.
Oh, cool.
We used to joke. We always say this is what's left of my Chevy Nova. But that the triangles and the spring are kind of like standard with my setup. And then what I've done also to my whole thing has been like to make it sound seamless. You didn't like if you pick up drop a stick or something, or switch sticks, you don't hear it. So I've came up with these little rods And then this duct tape is twofold. It's one, I usually take two or three of these on the gig because I'm always dropping them.
Mm.
And so the white duct tape is so I can find it on the floor in the
Okay.
dark. But also, it's so you can hit the cymbals if you want and not get a harsh attack.
Oh,
So if
brilliant.
you notice, like on that song on the bridge, offer he wanted more percussion sounds and more toys and things. So I think like going into the bridge, I switched from a stick to this, but I can still play the cymbals and
Mm.
not get too much of attack or damage them. And then also from just playing and developing things, I developed a stick where I
Oh.
attached a rod, and my whole thing was like, I could keep them loose. Like you do mallets, you pick up a stick, then you pick up this. But again, my whole thing is timing. Timing is you got to be quick. So I cut a notch at an angle in the drumstick that would fit the rod, and then I just taped it in there so it's always there. So so when I pick up this stick, it's got the stick and the rod, so I can play the cymbals or drums with the stick, and then just turn it to play the triangles or any kind of metal sounds.
Amazing.
So it's been a thing of like, just how can I do this? This is like, instead of just saying, oh, it's impossible to do, it's like, okay, why is it impossible? You know,
Yeah.
just, well, my whole thing is coming to music and in life is, I always say, as we get older, we kind of get these blinders that kind of come in, and we kind of develop our ideas and concepts, and this is all we see. But I always try and keep it open, like, there's more stuff over here. It's just just be open, and yeah.
Well, doing the thing with the sticks like that is not uncommon in the percussion world, especially if you're a mallet player.
Right.
If you're playing vibes or marimba or something. Those guys do that sort of thing a lot. So if you
Right.
study any of that, it's common to see people holding two sticks like that.
Right.
But
Yeah.
the difference is on what you're doing. You're going for a completely different sound in a different place than you would on a vibe.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So the snare drum was that a real snare drum? It was really tiny.
Yeah. It's LP. They call it a micro snare,
A
and
micro
it's
snare.
and I think it's two sizes. I think it's is it 8 inch and a 10 inch, and again, it has the clamp,
Mhm.
and you can turn the snares on or off. So if you
Okay.
turn it off, it kind of sounds like a small timbale or a Brazilian tamborim.
Mhm.
So yeah, that works great with the setup. It's a nice setup. You can play with your sticks or your hands. It has a live sound even when you play with your hands. Yeah.
Okay, so I do you remember? I know you do. The Paul Winter concert. You know
Sure.
Paul Winter.
Yeah.
This sounds like something you would be if that thing were you would be right in the middle of that because isn't that what they were doing with all of the different instruments and stuff?
Yeah.
But not the way you're doing it. You're doing it in a set configuration, but they would do it where they get up and actually move to all the different instruments.
Right. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. And again, it just as I started, developing this, it was just like, man, I can't live without this. So how can again and again from playing these little restaurants and bars, I had to have a tight setup. So in the beginning, pretty much everything used to come off one cymbal stand. Like, I would have a cymbal stand. I'd have the three triangles on the right. The left hand side would have that spring thing. I might have the little micro snare coming off of it. Because that's another thing. Like playing with Edmar, we started doing festivals in Europe, and so you've got to get on and off stage. They want you to get on and off really quick. So the beginning before weight limits on the airlines, I used to carry a lot of my own. I would carry one cymbal stand, and I would have this whole thing all set up off stage. So I just perhaps walk on stage, and it would go where the left tom would normally would go. That's where all that percussion would go, and then I'd have a tom on the right and a floor tom. Yeah, the whole thing was just having it everything where I could reach it.
I can see a little square wooden thing on wheels that you actually build and box up.
Yeah.
Almost like a great big old road case.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of cool. And then they could have the sides pop down. And it could be like a magician thing. Hey, it's Dave.
Right.
Well, let me ask you, why and when when we were off the ship, you came back to San Jose, and it wasn't long after that you moved to New York. And why did you move to New York City?
For me, New York, a lot of the bands I used to see in the Bay Area were from New York, and I just loved that music, loved the energy. And my wife now, we weren't married at the time, we took a vacation to New York just to kind of check it out, and we fell in love. And my thing is like, let's have no regrets. Like, I can always go home. Let's just go to New York and just check this out. And I was very fortunate. I was playing with a Brazilian group in the Bay Area. It was called percussion, and we actually got some gigs in New York. So we flew out there, and I think we were there for like 3 or 4 nights. And we played it. There's a club called SOBs, Sounds of Brazil, which is very famous. Yeah, SOBs, right? It's still around. And we played there like a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and it was the Brazilian hang. And I think we would start like at 10 o'clock at night, play 3 sets. The last set might be 2 in the morning.
Wow.
And usually by the last set, all the Brazilian musicians would come after they finished their gigs. And, and it was like, everybody in the band was Brazilian and spoke Portuguese, and they'd come up to me and like start speaking Portuguese. Like, oh, no Portuguese. Like, what do you mean? Like, you're Brazilian, and just talking to them, and they were just like, you should move to New York. So it was just like, that's, my wife loved it. And when we went back, I think like within a week, she bought a one-way ticket.
She goes, I'm going. If you want to hang with me, you better just go ahead and move.
Yeah. Because she's an artist also. She's a vocalist.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so it was just like, we got to do this. So,
yeah. So when I understand as a musician, especially jazz, because there's more of that happening in New York City than I think than the Bay Area, for example.
Uh-huh.
And so when you got there, how quickly were you and her able to find work and start sustaining your living there?
For me, I was fortunate. I don't know if you know, there's a drummer in the Bay Area, Kent Bryson.
Mm-hmm. I know Kent.
Who had moved to New York, and I had, was in touch with him, and he was getting ready to move back to the Bay Area, and he was playing with a Greek wedding band, and it was amazing. I had just played a little bit of Greek music. I did like a 3-week ship gig, and the crew was Greek, so we would do this Greek show. So I got a brief exposure to Greek music, and Kent was leaving, so I went, and the leader, his son, was a drummer, so I went and played percussion on a couple gigs, saw what the music was, and then played some few songs, and they got that gig. So pretty quickly, I was in this Greek wedding band. We played half Greek, half American, and it was all great players. Like the leader loved jazz and stuff, and it was really open to this stuff. The piano player, years later, he ended up playing with Jonathan Butler on keyboards. So it wasn't too, so it was pretty quick. I was able to make a living, or do a lot of music. And even through that, one of the piano players, this guy Joe Baker, was also into Broadway, kind of leading into Broadway. and he liked my playing. He hired me to do an off-Broadway show. And at that time, my reading was really good. And like one of the first rehearsals, it was pretty straight ahead stuff, but we were just flying through it. And again, I set up my music stand so I could see him. So anytime he needed to adjust something, I was looking at him. And from that, he recommended me for the singer Leslie Uggams. I don't know if you know Leslie.
Mm-hmm.
She's in Roots, and she was also a sing along with Mitch as a child star, and played with her for 4 years, and that was amazing. Great band. And through one of her gigs, we were doing a festival where the house drummer was this guy Ronnie Zito, who did a lot of Broadway, and at the time he was doing a show called Grand Hotel. And so I was like, I'd wanted to get into Broadway. So I was like, man, do you ever need subs? And he said, yeah, man, come down. So that was my first experience to Broadway, was, again, sitting next to Ronnie. And that was a strange show because we were above the stage on the catwalk.
No, really?
Yeah. So, the catwalk is only so wide. So you had a rail in your back, and the drum set. And it was just strange, you'd look down and it just was like the metal grate. So it was a little strange.
Dude, I'm scared of heights. I would be having,
right.
Oh, now
that's something to get used to. And just like, but that was like my first experience in the New York Broadway. I had done shows in the Bay Area. The San Jose Civic Light Opera. Had done shows there, and actually in the high school we did productions also. But that was my jumping into Broadway there, and that was an experience. I had done a couple shows with one conductor, and the original conductor came back. This guy Jack Light, legendary Broadway conductor, and I'm feeling okay. I've done 2 or 3 shows, and Jack is kind of right in front of me. And there's no other musicians around you, because just where the catwalk is, the bass player's kind of behind me. I can hear everything, but it's nobody's there.
Hang on. So I'm trying to picture this catwalk, because catwalks are what, 3 feet wide?
Yeah, something. Yeah, probably was a little bit wider, but somehow Ronnie fit a drum set in there. It was tight. Things were tight.
I'm still tripping on that, because you'd almost have to be looking down the catwalk, right?
Well, it was set up that I was facing forward, because there must have been a cross catwalk, and then the brass, they must have built something for them. They were to the left. There was brass to the left, woodwinds to the right. The percussionist was behind me to my right. The bass was behind left, and the conductor was about maybe 4 or 5 feet in front of me.
What?
And he was, visible,
Oh, I'm sorry. That's still tripping me out.
Yeah. It was, like here, jump right in here.
Oh, man.
But I did my first show with Jack, and he gives me this cue to, and it's a hit, and I do a rim shot, and he's like, Argh! I'm like, okay, like what, and like, gosh, I'm starting to get nervous, but and then maybe 6, 7 songs later, we're doing this song, we're in a vamp, and he cues me, and I hit the rim shot, and he yells, he's like, come on, they need to hear that out there.
Oh,
again, I'm trying to look at him like, yes, sir, and try not to get lost, not to freak out, and just I just kept on going, finished the show, and he had to walk past me. So I kind of just sat there. I was going to let him leave first, and so he walked, and he stopped, and he says, are you here tomorrow? I said, yes, sir. And he says, go home, listen to that tape, and see me 10 minutes before the show. That's it. And he walked off, and I just was like, oh. And again, I was new. I didn't really know any of the other players, and I'm just like, so I'm counting down in the dressing room, just, feeling horrible, just, head down. And then this trumpet player comes over, and he says, man, you okay, kid? I said, yeah. He said, let me ask you something. He says, did Jack talk to you? I said, yeah. He said, go home, listen to the tape, and see him 10 minutes before the show. He says, okay. He likes you. Just go home, do that, see him 10 minutes before. So went home, listened to the tape. I'm not really sure. I kind of marked where those two sections were. Came back. He's go to this song. He says, when they do that, when you do that rim shot, like the dancers, they're just dancing in a circle, vamping. And they're not going to move until they hear that rim shot. So you got to hit that thing. You got to hit it as hard as you can hit. Break a stick. I don't care. And I'm like, okay. And he says, okay, go to the next one. And the next rim shot was the guy is having a heart attack on stage. He says, I want you to hit that so hard that you give the audience a heart attack. Like they're going to jump. And he says, I give you that cue. I give you like that. I'm like, okay. So we get up there, and his cue wasn't like that. It was really just like turning a car key.
Oh, okay.
But because I was just watching him and I saw that, and I just whacked it, both the cues, and then he was smiling. And then after the show, he says, that's the way to play the show, David. Thank you very much. It was like, oh.
That's great. Man.
It was like one of those things like, don't freak out. And another thing with that show was, again, I would always make my own book because I could mark things, make bad page turns longer. So with that book, I didn't realize it. The start of the last number, it's a blackout, and it's all staccato, like bop, 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 with the whole orchestra. And so I turn to that page, the first show, the lights go off. I can't see the music.
Oh, no.
I didn't realize till afterwards they had specially coded their music, and they had like the black lights.
Oh.
So luckily I just got like that close to the music and, following with my finger and playing it, and the lights came on. But that was an always thing. Like, is there any special coded music whenever I would do a show?
Oh, man. So the connection we have is we hadn't talked for a long time, and I posted on Facebook that my daughter Michaela was starting to do front of house sound mixer at the Broadway show Chicago at the Ambassador. And you go like, oh, I played that show. And what people may not know, that show's been running for 30 years or something crazy. I mean, it's been there forever.
Yeah.
And so your story, who was it that got you that gig?
Again, it was Ronnie Zito, Ronnie, because I did a couple other shows with him. And so pretty much whenever Ronnie would get a show, I would be his first call sub. One, because I, would prepare, and then I was available a lot. And so he called me, was doing this show. And again, Ronnie does he was doing a lot of recordings at the time. And so he always needed to be available. So he wanted to get you in there as soon as possible to learn the show so he could take off in a split second. And normally you can't have subs watching until like after the first 6 or 8 weeks. But again, I think because they knew who Ronnie, the kind of things he did, they made an exception where they would allow me just to come to rehearsals and sit next to him, just so I could kind of get a feel for what's going on, get a feel for the conductor, so the cast could see me, so they wouldn't be too nervous. So it was Ronnie. And then again, you sit next to him, you watch him, make a recording, get a copy of the book, and then I would just practice at home, set up like he would set up. On that particular show, the music stand was on the far left and the conductor was kind of on the far right, which is not ideal. So I would practice. I kind of knew the little tricky spots, and I would practice looking away and then being able to come back and not be lost. Of course, practicing, I would get lost. And so, just by doing a lot, I kind of would remember stuff, or, remember where my eye would remember where to come back to. And So the first show I did, the conductor, came to me and he says, I know you're going to do great. It's going to be fine. He says, my biggest fear is that when I need you to be looking at me, you're going to be looking at the music. So he's like, as much as possible, try and, give me a look every now and then. I'm like, okay. And then with Chicago, the band is on the stage, and the lead at the time was BB Newworth, and she would come up into the stage, and then, she was on a platform that would go down. And then in the middle of the first number, that platform would come up. So the curtains close, she comes up, she turns around, she says, hi, Ronnie, you're not Ronnie. She just was kind of like, good luck. And she kind of turned around and, kind of made the cross symbol like, oh my God, and, but again, I prepare for these things. Hold on a second.
So if I remember correctly, the main reason why the music stand couldn't be, it had to be on the left is mainly because of how they had the drums set up, right? There wasn't space to put it in.
Yeah. Again, everything was kind of tight, and so you couldn't really turn it, because on that one you had the drum set, you had a four-piece kit, and then he to the left of that were a set of like 5 wood blocks, temple blocks, and some percussion. To the right there was a set of orchestra bells. So it just it wasn't logistically, it wasn't the best, and that's the best he could come up with.
And the wood blocks and stuff are for like dancing, some of the dance numbers. And
yep, definitely. That show, that was a great show, because you could play. Wasn't, they were songs. Sometimes you do a song. I remember doing a show and talking to somebody on the phone, and I said, hold on, I got to play. And I would just put the phone down, and I would play 16 bars, and then we'd be done for 5 minutes. And I said, okay. He says, man, what was that? I said, I'm playing a show. He's like, what? It's music? This was just the Spanish guitarist. But Chicago, you actually played tunes, and you could play out and stuff. And that was a show too. I had done a shows and was doing great, and came and played a show, did the first half, and intermission came, and the conductor came over, and he just said, he says, Dave, he says, sounds wonderful. He says, I got to ask, are you relaxing tonight? And I kind of thought about it. I said, yeah, I guess so. He says, you can't do that for this show. He says, you got to just be intense, the whole time. So I played the second half. He says, yeah, I need that energy from the get-go. And so on that particular show, it starts off with a solo trumpet, and then the conductor yells out 5, 6, 7, 8. And then, so I would kind of imagine like this was a horse race and the gates are there. And so while he's playing that trumpet solo, I'm like, kind of just getting that energy. I growl a lot when I play. Just, knowing what that energy, what I need to feel, what I need to put out there. And 5, 6, 7, 8, boom. Gates are open, the race is off,
Wow. Yeah. And that show's been there forever. It's still going. And I think it's one of the only shows that still is it's just music. And there's the tell me if I'm wrong, but the tend now toward in Broadway is they're almost making it like, because of Hamilton, where everything is tracked and there's clicks and there's all kinds of stuff, and they're putting drummers in booths down under the stage, and they're trying to control everything.
Yep.
This is one of the last shows that is you're just up there playing tunes on the stage.
Yeah. Yep.
And I don't people may not really understand the whole concept behind the whole Hamilton thing, but from a drummer's point of view, this is just me speaking. It's lifeless. Even though it sounds good, even though it sounds technically, sonically, it sounds great. But
right.
when they're playing a groove, it's like, give me the snare, give me the make it drive me. But no, it It just stays.
Wow. That's unfortunate. I mean, the drummer there, Andres Ferrero, is a great drummer. He did his other show was In the Heights.
Mm.
And that's unfortunate. Yeah, I think he's under the stage and he's playing a combination of acoustic drums and electronics.
Yep.
And so it's whose ever concept live sound that they want to put out there.
It's got to be exactly the same every night.
Yeah. That's, I guess, what the beauty of Chicago is. You're hearing, I don't know, how much is out front, but I would say maybe 50% is live, or if not more, coming right off the stage.
Right. The one of the trombone players, one of the trumpet players, if I'm not mistaken, is they're mic'd a little bit, but mostly what you're hearing is the instrument right off the stage.
Yeah.
It's not really that big of a theater.
Right. No.
It's pretty small. So have you always been in the union, or did you have to join the union when you moved to New York City?
I was in the San Francisco Union, and mainly would do a show. The Civic Light Opera was a union show. I studied at San Jose State and studied classical. And actually, my first teacher was Anthony Cerrone, who was the principal percussionist of the San Francisco Symphony. So I had a classical background, and I was probably maybe fifth or sixth call sub for the San Jose Symphony. So occasionally, when they would do a number that had a big percussion section, I would get called, and that was a union gig. And so basically, when I moved to New York, I transferred. The Broadway stuff is union. Recordings, as much as I can, I would do try and do a union, make it a union date, because it gets to your pension, adds to your pension. There was a few years I started doing TV jingles. There was a campaign. Schwab did these commercials where they would take people and make them look like cartoons, and it was live band behind it, and that was one of those things of always be prepared. You never know when something's coming your way. I had played with this jazz pianist, a trio, and a great bass player, and then we kind of went our separate ways, and hadn't heard from him in years. And all of a sudden I get a call from this jingle house, and they say, Darren Solomon recommended you for a date. We need somebody today. And I'm like, okay, I'm available. And we're on 14th Street. And he says, how soon can you get there? And I said, I could be there in 15 minutes. They said, okay, you got the gig. And so I hang up, and I'm like, Darren Solomon. So I'm going through my Rolodex, my phone. Who's Darren Solomon? I don't know this guy. So I just show up. They have drums. I said, I don't have anything here. They said, we got everything, drums, cymbals, just show up, sticks. Show up. They said, well, we'll take you to the drums. So, there's Darren, and he kind of waves, and I wave, and still, I said, who is this guy? I don't know him, So I'm getting set up, and then he walks in. He's like, Dave, how are you? I'm like, oh, great, Darren. And then he says, have you seen Roy lately? And then it all clicked. This piano player, Roy Merriweather, we had played with. And at the time, Darren had long hair, and he had cut his hair real short. But it was like a jazz date. And what this jingle house did was they would have 3 composers write music for the same picture. And each composer had 1 hour to get that, 15 seconds, 30 seconds of music. And I think at that time it was piano, bass, drums, and maybe 2 or 3 horns. So they would usually kind of just talk you through the track, show you the video. They'd say, Dave, these are certain points where if you look on the video, the guy, moves his hat. That's what that accent is. So, so we'd go in all with a click track, and they just start, play it. Let's play this. And they would usually start with me, Dave, can you do this? Can you play less of the ride, play more of the hi-hat, put a fill here, and then they just kind of go through the band getting what they wanted. But that was a thing of being patient, because you might do 15, 20 takes, as you would go through different players, and you kind of just had to remember what they were telling you to do. And some of them weren't drummers, so you'd have to decipher how does that, what they're saying, how does that relate to the drum set? Um, and then just, being able to do the same thing every take, or if it's different, maybe just a slight difference. But that one jingle date, they liked what I did, so they started calling me for more. And then I started letting them know I played percussion, so I could add percussion or do, that sometimes they'd call me and say, okay, let's do this one just drum set, and now let's do one just percussion. How would you play this just as percussionist, or overdub, um, so and one, when I talk about being open, not coming in with blinders. There was one commercial I did, and it was for Oshkosh Bagosh, the kids' clothing. And they called me and they said, Dave, it's just going to be you and me, and the guy from Oshkosh wants to be there, and just to let you know, you're cool. He just, he wants to be there and see what happens. So we get there, meet the guy, and he says, listen, I love the music. I love the video's great with the kids. I love the music. He said, but it just sits there. It's kind of like what you were saying with that. It just sits there. Because everything had been done with a computer.
Mm.
He says, it just sits there. They say, you're the guy. They say you're the guy that can give it life. So again, the composer had some ideas, and we tried some things, and you could see the guy like, yeah, okay, it's getting there. And again, because they trusted me, they got, developed a point where they could trust me. They said, do you have any ideas, Dave? And I said, yeah. I said, do you have a big blanket or something? They said, yeah. So, because it was a wood floor, we put the blanket down. They had buckets of, crates of percussion, and I just kind of start dumping it on the blanket. And I said, put like a couple mics around here. And I start taking off my shoes, and they're like, Dave, what are you doing? I said, trust me. And like, okay. And I said, what would a kid do? Imagine a kid's going to play this commercial. He doesn't know that you're supposed to hit the toms together, or hit this together. He has no sense of time. There was already like a drum track keeping time. So we played the track, and I just started hitting stuff. Some was some was off, and you could see the guy from Oshkosh behind the glass, like just jumping up and down, like, yes.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's cool.
That's like that. Just be open-minded. How can you get what they want? What the composer wants, what the client wants.
Yeah. I can't help but think about the heavy, rich jingle and session scene in New York City that I always heard about up till the 80s, right?
Yeah.
Were you able to get in on any of that, or be around it, or know some of those people of that scene?
Not really in the 80s. Like I say, this was maybe 10 years ago, 10, 11 years ago. I kind of caught the tail end. And I think it was one of the few jingle houses that still use live musicians. And I think that's what they would show, to their clients. Like, listen, you can tell it. They can tell a difference, and those were nice because they were union, and so you would get, residuals. It might be you get paid for a 4-week run, and if it got picked up again, you got another set of things. And so for a minute there, there was a number of commercials going, so it was nice to get these union checks, from dates you've done. So. So it was kind of at the tail end, I think, of the height of all the jingle stuff. And there's might be still some stuff, but with everybody's home studios, I think a lot of stuff is done, electronically.
So right now, you've obviously just been sitting at home. There's not a lot going on in anywhere.
Yeah.
But I can't help it. I keep hearing it almost sounds like there's a wind chime.
There actually there is some wind. I have a ceiling fan going because I don't have AC in this room,
Oh, okay.
and there's also these bamboo chimes.
That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, and that's they're hitting.
I'm hearing that, and I'm just thinking the Dave's House of Percussion.
Yeah, they got a bell here. You know.
Oh man, that's hysterical. You could do a little kids show. You
Yeah,
know, you sit and do little percussion instruments and stuff.
yeah,
I'll bet people would like to see that.
yeah.
I
Well,
can,
I mean, that was another thing I got involved in when I was playing with a flamenco guitarist. There was this pianist, this Cuban pianist, Oriente Lopez, who got commissioned by Lincoln Center Education to write a piece of music that talked about music from Cuba, from Brazil, um, from Spain, and New Orleans. And so he thought about it, and one thing he thought about, water connected all the islands. So so basically he came to hear this flamenco guitarist play, and then the guitarist like, why don't you get my drummer? And he's like, do you play drum set too? And yes, yeah. So I did like a little audition with Oriente, playing the cajon, and we went through some Brazilian music, some New Orleans music, flamenco. So I ended up getting that gig, and so it was a lot of percussion. And so what this was, it was a whole thing of how music went from one island to another, and certain schools would buy certain programs, so they would buy this Oriente's packet, and they would study this stuff. He had a whole curriculum to study, and the final would be for us to come to their school and play a set of music that demonstrates all the music, and then also talk about the different instruments and the different styles. And so one of the part of that demonstration would always be come to me, like, can you show us what instruments? What are you sitting on? What is this box? And
are you
and
sitting?
of course the kids would love it. Yeah.
Are you sitting on a cajon right now?
No, they're up on top.
You got it hanging?
Well, I've got, of course, I mounted upper shelves to put the drum sets up there, the cajons, congas, just again so I can get things off. It's not a huge garage.
I do have a cajon sitting next to me, and I threaten people to hit it.
Yeah.
I initially was going to use it just to sit on because I didn't have anything to sit on, and it just got too uncomfortable. I needed a chair that I can sit.
Yeah, and I'm getting to that point too where it's not as comfortable. But I tell you, the cajon, being introduced to the cajon, like, just opened up a whole world of music and different players. Like, say I was playing with the flamenco guitarist when the Colombian harpist Edmar Castañeda came in and heard me, from playing with Edmar, and also, or playing with the flamenco guitarist. This singer from Spain called, and there's so she had a trio, it was just voice, piano, and percussion. And I used a similar setup than like the one we watched with Offer. And and sometimes I would just bring the cajon, and I would just play, because that's in traditional flamenco, or in the flamenco music nowadays, it's just cajon, and then there's usually people playing the palmas and their feet. But it's an amazing instrument.
I want to tell you a brief story about when I got my first cajon. I had a gig on the third floor of the Olympic Club downtown San Francisco, and I wasn't feeling well. And that club was maybe 8 blocks from the Guitar Center. I had a whole set of drums. It was just a little trio thing with John Hoy and Nelson Braxton. I went to the music store and bought a cajon. And I walked up there and I sat down and said, I'm going to play cajon tonight because I'm too lazy. I'm not feeling well. Right. So at the end of the gig, Nelson says to me, you ever watch YouTube? I went, yeah. He goes, all I have to say to you about your cajon playing YouTube. um, so I'm going, okay. So I watched YouTube and I get it's like, oh my God, to play the cajon, you can't just sit and hit it. I mean, these guys, I mean, it's the guys who play cajon really play. I mean,
sure.
It is not something you just sit and go boom chuck.
Right. No. It's and then different ones have different sounds, I think at this point I think I have like 4 different cajons, because they all have different sounds and different, certain styles. If I'm playing a certain gig, I might want to bring this cajon or this or the other cajon, but yeah.
So a couple of things. We've been at it for an hour. We've had a lot of people tuning in.
Oh, cool.
And somebody here says, "Love you, Dad." I'm guessing, and it's Cameron.
Yeah, that's my younger daughter.
And Bruce, do you know Bruce Silliman?
Oh, that's my older brother.
Yeah.
2 older brothers, older sister. Yeah, wow. He's in Vegas.
Right.
Cameron's in New Hampshire right now.
So how big of a family do you have?
I mean, 2 older brothers and older sisters. So.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Rick Vandeveer has been watching, and Jimmy Sanchez.
Jimmy's in Thailand.
Yeah.
Right. Sure.
Would you feel like you're more of a percussionist now than a set drummer, or is it just kind of one and the same?
One and the same, because there's a current project I'm doing, Pete Muller, and it's strictly drums, and it's more of like we call it Americana rock, again, that was something from a bass player recommended me to Pete's gig. Pete's, it's mixing some jazz things in it. We've been able to go to the Montreux Jazz Festival. We went last year. We did the Umbria Jazz in Italy last year. He had a new CD come out a year ago, and we did a nice 20-city tour. We did an opening act tour, and that was awesome. But just playing drum set. So, but I think a lot of times I get called for doing the combination, or if there's small projects. There's before the pandemic, I was doing some duo stuff with a jazz guitarist, where it's just the 2 of us. And actually, with that video you showed, that guitarist Alex Skolnick, he's got 2 careers. He's like known in the rock field. He's like an insane rock guitarist, and then he wanted to learn jazz, and so he went to the New School, and that's where he met Offer. And then Offer saw me playing with Edmar and just called me out of the blue. But on that tune, Offer, the guitarist, he has a loop pedal. So that vamp that starts, he sets up a loop, and then he just clicks the pedal. So the A sections, we're playing with the loop. So that's another, challenge. Like, okay, you can't rush, and you got to make it sound natural. And then when we go to the bridge, he would shut it off. So again, you kind of got to stay in the same tempo, because when it comes back to the A, he hits the pedal, and it comes back on again.
That could possibly be a challenge.
Yeah. We got together a couple times and worked on it, and I'm again used to working with clicks and stuff, and and feeling comfortable with tracks and whatnot. So yeah.
Dave, this has been really great catching up with you.
Totally awesome.
Yeah, and the whole percussion thing is, I'm all thumbs. I can't do it. I'm always fascinated with people that can, because it really does take a you can't just pick up a tambourine and just do it right. I mean, to really play any of those instruments, there's things that you need to learn about them.
Yeah.
Gumby Ortiz.
Oh, he was the percussionist with Al Di Meola. He was again, we used to call him Yoda, like as
really?
teacher. Because we were all young playing with Al. Like, that was intense. That was an intense gig. The audition for that was, I heard about it. I called his manager, he's, he started asking me like, who have you played with? And I kind of start telling him. He says, you know what? I don't care who you played with. He says, we've tried all the best drummers in New York. Pick up the album, learn these 2 songs, just go in and play. So pretty much the whole band was picked except for the drummer. So I picked up the album, listened to the songs. They weren't technically that difficult, but it was a lot of typical Al Di Meola where there's different odd times at different points. So I figured I'm going to be nervous. Let me just make a chart. So I made a chart, and there was one part where this one song, like the A section, kind of ends, and the drummer was just playing kind of like flam taps on the ride cymbal, and just like prata 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 prata, and Al is playing who knows what on top. And I'm like, and I listened millions of times. I couldn't figure out how it related, but the drummer was just solid. And at the end, the piano would play this descending line, boom. So at the audition, Al, when I walked in, I'm sitting up there playing a different song that I didn't know. So I just sat there, and then they finished, and then introductions. He's like, you think you're ready? I'm like, yeah. And my leg is just shaking, and he calls that song. And like within the first 8 bars, it just, like the bass player, we were just jiving. It felt so good, that I just kind of was able to relax, thank God. And then when it got to that section, I just was playing that thing, focused just on me. And Al's playing his thing, and he's like going, yeah, yeah. And I'm just kind of looking at the piano player like, dude, you better play that thing, because I haven't, because to me it's just 1 1 1 1 1. I don't know, it's not 1 2 3 4. And then he played the thing. We played the song, no mistakes.
Wow.
And Al kind of looked at me like, you think you can do that again? And by then I was just like, I said, yeah. And he said, okay, do this, and then we played some other, like, how can you play a bayon, Brazilian rhythm? I said, yeah. So I played it one way. He says, can you do that same thing on the ride? Blah blah blah. And when I left the audition, I felt I could not have played any better. And if I don't get this gig, I don't know what he would want. And I got, like, a week later, they called and offered me the gig. But Gumby was the percussionist, and Gumby was from the Bronx, just hardcore, great percussionist. And he just kind of.
I have 3 things that I'm thinking about. Number one, in case anybody doesn't know who Al Di Meola is, before he came to prominence playing with Chick Corea and Return to Forever, right? So
yeah,
when you,
I think he was 18.
As kids, we're listening to those guys and going like, holy crap. I mean,
right.
Those guys are the shit.
Right. And that was the thing too, is like, I remember hearing that Return to Forever album in high school. Like, here I am. This is him.
Right. So the other 2 things that I wanted before we get out of here, I want to know the rhythm you just described. How would you play that? Give me a sample of what that rhythm is. The Brazilian rhythm.
The bayon, okay.
Bayon. And then I also want to know, what is a typical Greek pattern, because you were talking about the Greek band, and there's a real specific sort of Greek pattern too. What would that sound like, and what is that pattern?
For the bayon, the Brazilian rhythm, the bass, it's everything's in 2 in Brazilian music. So the bass drum, it's like 1 2. It's like boom 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 boom. And then on the second bar, you do a cross stick. So it's a boom, boom, click, boom, boom, bit, boom, boom, bit, boom, boom, bit. And then the ride, if you're playing it on the drum set, the ride cymbal might be, ding, da, da, 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 and usually, if you're having percussion, usually a triangle is playing 16th notes, opening on the kind of muffling and opening the triangle.
Oh, okay.
The downbeats, ding it, ding it, ding it. So it's like a 16th groove, but it's like a boom, 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 cat, boom, boom, cat, boom, boom, cat. You know,
And Brazilian people really feel it a little differently than the way. So did that take a minute for you to kind of settle into? Did it help having those guys play it with you?
well, again, growing up in the Bay Area and my mom loving Brazilian music, I was surrounded by it. I loved Airto, and the old Keystone Corner. The original Keystone Corner was in San Francisco, and Airto used to come there a few times a year. So I mean, I would be, literally 3 feet from him. So I got to see it and feel it firsthand. And then I played a lot of Brazilian music. There's a great guitarist. He also plays bass, Jeff Buens, out in the Bay Area, and Rich Coons, a pianist. And, they love Brazilian music. And so we had a trio, and we would play a lot of, things. We played like the Tanya Maria things, a lot, Egberto Gismonte, Hermeto Pascual. So it was music I was already familiar with. So I, kind of knew that groove, when Al called, said, can you play this?
So that was good that you had that history.
Yeah.
And then what's a real typical kind of Greek kind of?
There's kind of three. Well, there's four really. A lot of it it's in seven, and it's 1 2 3 bantu bantu 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 1 2 So I would sometimes play like a snare drum, marchy kind of thing, and playing those accents with the bass drum and the hi-hat, boom, 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 boom. So that's like a standard one. I think that's I forget the names.
Well, most people wouldn't know that a lot of that is in seven.
Right. And they, man, when they start, Gus would start, he'd play a pickup, ba da ba da ba boom. And then the dance floor, forget it. They're dancing in seven. And then there was also like in 3/4, which is kind of a slower. It's like a boom, cat, tat, boom, bat, bat, 3, boom, a 2, back, boom. So I kind of do the bass drum and the floor tom on 1, and again, man, just funky and dirty. Bouzouki player. We used to have, his name was Potty, an old guy. Potty always smoking a cigarette. It's like Potty, the Gus would play, and he'd take the cigarette and he'd put it by the tuning peg, lit cigarette, and then play. And then we finish, he'd pick his cigarette back up. And then another one is a slow 9, which is like, the rhythm is like 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. And again, that, like when we first, I kind of knew the rhythm, so I'm playing it. The leader turns around, he says, give me a crash on 1. So I crash. He says, no, on 1. And I crash. He says on 1. I said, Gus, that's my 1. That's when the changes are moving. And he's like, no, you can't listen to the changes because the changes follow the vocalist or the soloist. So if they decide to change chords on beat 6, everybody goes. So, it was funny. So that's like that slow 9. And again, that's mainly for the men to show off in their dance. And usually they're dancing like low to the ground, and they have the tablecloth, and somebody standing up helps them keep their balance. But
so in other words,
go ahead.
So in other words, you keep the 9 pulse,
right?
And no matter where the other people go, they could be going over the bar line or whatever, but you keep your 9 pulse no matter what.
Yeah. Yep.
That would be freaky.
Yeah, and it, years, maybe like 4 years ago, I got called for a gig. Guitar places, man, the singer's coming from Greece. She's got this thing. Don't worry, it's no Greek music. She has a pop album. We're playing, at the Cutting Room. Boom. Great band. We're playing. We rehearsed. We do the music. Packed house. They start screaming out Greek tunes. He's Greek, so he knows them. And he just turns around and he looks and he says, man, I don't know what to tell you. This is in 9. And I'm like, oh, the Zamiko. And he like looks at me like, what? And we start playing. He starts playing, and I jump right in. And he's like, man, how you know this music? And
Oh.
it was basically, the bass player was a great bassist, but he had never played this. So he's like, man, where's one? Like, what are you playing?
Where's
Uh,
one?
and so it was like this guitar player is like, man, you're like insane. You play anything, you know.
Oh, that's great.
So
Yeah, man. That
yeah.
I had people tell me where's one when I was playing in four. Oh man. All right. Well, listen, Dave, we're at an hour and 15 minutes. We probably ought to take it out. It's 6:15 where you are,
Cool, man.
I think.
7:15. Yeah,
Is it?
7:15. We're 3 hours ahead of you.
Shit, that's right. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is 4:15 here. Yeah.
Yeah.
It took me a minute. I'm a little slow. So if I play something, I kind of want to play this flamenco trio thing.
Yeah.
Should I play that? Would that be something good
Sure.
to try to
Yeah,
take?
that's an old thing we did. That's the two of the guys were in Al Di Meola's band, and then we did that at the LP Factory. Martin
Okay.
Cohen is great for doing videos, and he had me come in and play, to demonstrate the instruments, the LP instruments, and expose us, give us some exposure. That's been a great thing. Was it meeting Martin Cohen? It's like a childhood, a legend to me, and we've just become dear friends.
Okay. All right. Well,
I've even helped them develop their cajon. They would bring me in, like, Dave, what do you think of this cajon? And I would say, it's not yet. It's not ready. It's
how cool is that?
Huh?
I said, how cool is that?
Yeah, it was awesome. Or he would, the first time I played those little cluster chimes, he said, those are my chimes, but that's not my string. Why did you change it? And I'm like I'm kind of nervous, do you want the truth? He's like, yeah, please. I said, I love the instrument. I'm playing 4 or 5 nights a week. I put it in the box. I get to like the 5th gig, they're falling off. I said, your string is horrible. It's crap. He said, so what'd you do? And I said, I went to the fishing store. I bought 100-pound test line. I turned it upside down, figured your pattern, spent a half hour restrung it. And he took me right to his product development guy and said, Ray, the chimes? He says, you're working on it. No, he fixed it.
Nice.
And that's the beauty of his. That's why he's become, the biggest in the world, is because, like, what's good about the instrument, what's not good. How can we make it better? That's the beauty of Martin and the company LP.
All right. So I'm sorry. I've listened to this story, but I'm also trying to get this video up. So I'll play the video. And the video, again, is a little choppy, but we can at least hear the music and see some of what you're playing. And I'll close the show with it. And thank you for tuning in.
Thank you, man.
And we can find all of this that we've talked about. If somebody just searched you on YouTube, would they be able to find all of this stuff?
Yep, they should be able to find it. And, when you see this with Romero, you can go to LP, and a lot of this stuff will show up. A lot of the stuff. If you just put my name, you'll see stuff with Edmar and also with Pete and whatever. Yeah, or people can, message me on Facebook if they want more information.
Okay, and they can find you easily on Facebook, David Silliman.
Yep.
Facebook. So I'm going to take us out with this, and thank you again for joining me in the green room. This has been great.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Thank you. Awesome.
Here we go.